Good morning, YouTube! Today we're working on Lagatha, the Shield Maiden, 2007 Volvo XC70. Back when I had the breakdown back in November, and we did a bunch of repairs, changed the PCV system. It had built some pressure with the clogged PCV, and it had blown through or deteriorated the seal on the oil pan and the seals for the oil cooler on the back of the oil pan. And I just changed the oil. That was back in November when we did the original repairs. November, December, back in there. It's now March, so it's been 3 months. It's been driving just fine, but 600 miles ago, 3 weeks ago, I changed the oil and looked underneath, and sure enough, it was still seeping a little bit worse from the oil cooler seals and the oil pan. So this car is set to go to Albuquerque in about 5 days. So wanted to make sure we get this oil cooler seals. I got a new oil cooler, I got new oil cooler seals, and got gasket maker for the anaerobic gasket maker for the oil pan that this car uses. It does not have a gasket or a material gasket. So we're going to do that real fast. Kind of a big project. I'm draining the oil right now. I got to drain the coolant, and we'll get this thing done, and we'll get this car back on the road. I didn't want it to drive into Albuquerque because once those seals start going, especially on the oil cooler, they can deteriorate really quickly and dump a lot of oil really fast, and you're stranded. So we're going to change this out, and I'll show you the parts. All right, here's the parts we got. We got the oil cooler. This is where the oil's coming in and out from the oil pan, and then we have coolant coming in and out and circulating through here and cooling off the oil with the just keeping it at the coolant temperature. So this is the normal unit. I think these are described as 45 millimeters, 4.5 centimeters. And then there is a performance version or an enhanced version that's 65. And when I was online, I didn't see that at IPD, so I just got this aftermarket equivalent bare unit. So this one did pressurize the PCV system, and I think it damaged the seals. So we're going to change that out. Here's the 2 seals that go in there. They sit into the oil pan on the outside of the oil pan to create this seal. 4 bolts is all that holds that on, but I got to drain coolant and oil. IPD was nice enough to send me, they said they were out of this hose, but they had another one that was $2 cheaper, but when the package arrived, it was actually double on the elbow bend one, and I needed the compound bend. So had to get this one. I don't remember who I got this from. I think I got this from, the only place I could find it was Rock Auto. FCP was also out of it. A bunch of hose clamps. I did get an extra oil pan seal kit. I got this because I know that there are oil seals inside on a pickup tube. So I'm kind of curious. Quick flashback right here. See the old video where I had a clog when I took off the PCV system? The oil trap box was clogged on the drain back into the oil pan, and I used an electrical wire to get that out, or to clear it. So I'm going to pull the pan today, and we'll see how bad it is from the inside, but get all the gunk out of the bottom of it that's sitting in there, any residue. And I know there's pickup tube seals that are inside there, so hopefully they're in this kit. If not, I'm going to be running to the dealer. Got the anaerobic gasket maker. So we're going to get this thing back together today. This will be my first test putting one of these on. It's kind of involved, but not complicated. I just got to get all the oil out of the car and get all the coolant out, refill that up. And this stuff says it is it's sealed immediately once it's back to pressure on the torque specs, or the 2 metal mating surfaces, and then it hits its full cure within 24 hours. So this thing should be drivable today, or at the latest tomorrow. But we'll get this thing put back together and on the road. I did see that I have a little bit of splatter right up there, and that's sitting right above serpentine belt, and historically that is power steering pump. But I looked, this power steering pump was replaced 2 years ago during the pandemic. So 2001, not even 3 years ago, so maybe 2.5 years ago. So I'm pretty sure there's a little bit of seepage showing on the little, where it comes out. But look at that, that thing is clean. I think what's actually happening here is the oil pan down below is pressurizing some oil onto the pulley on the bottom on the crankcase pulley, just getting a little oil out around the broken seal or the deteriorating oil pan seal, and that's flicking oil. So we'll do all this, clean that off. This thing's driving to Albuquerque. When it gets back from Albuquerque, take a look at it and see if it's back. And if it is back, we'll know that it's most likely power steering pump. So we'll keep going on this and have some fun. All right, YouTube, check this out. We're underneath the car. I'm going to look at the camera so I make sure you're seeing what I'm talking about. But here's the oil pan. In the drain right now, it is dripping oil. I pulled the oil filter out and the oil filter cap. That oil filter cap, I'm going to get a new one. It's just always moist. If I don't see anything leaking around the ring, I replace the ring every single time on the IPD oil change kits. So I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm just going to order a new one with the next round of oil filters. But the front side seals on this oil pan are all dry. And you can see some dripping back here. I put the oil pan plug back in just so I could move my collection thing over to get the oil filter off and not drip all over my floor. But so that's just sitting in there loosely. Got to remember to torque that. But here you can see this is our cooler. But if we look, see this edge? See how that's wet? And when I look on my supercar, the air dam underneath, it's got some dripping on it and collecting some gunk from road debris. So right in this area, you can see where it started. Actually, I just saw, oh, that's a drip from the oil. That's a drip from this is coming from the oil filter being out and it's just running back on the pan. So that's not new. But you can also see, let's see if it'll, up here, it's hard to see. The top were those, it's all wet. It's just all wet along the back of the oil pan. And then also right here is wet. And I think that's just up some blowback coming about and following back onto the Haldex differential on the front here. So I think it's all coming from the oil pan and just blowing back as it's coming. So this backside is just all damp. We're going to fix this, get this resealed. Quick update down here. I'm just rethinking this through. These coolant lines for the oil cooler are coming off the upper part of the block, just I don't know, 12 inches above where they're at right here. I think I'm just going to disconnect these hoses and let it drain off the top of the engine rather than draining all of the coolant from the radiator. And the reason I'm thinking that is this coolant was just put in back in November when I redid the PCV system, so I don't want to waste it all. So I'm just going to drain it from the top. Hopefully it doesn't make too big of a mess. And using this hose, I can just get it to drain into my catch basin underneath here. That was not fun, YouTube. Got the coolant drained out. Oh my God, that's hard to get those hoses off and get any leverage to pry those old hoses off of there. Got them off. Now I have rigged up this little trick from doing the thermostat back a year ago. T40 on a DeWalt drill adapter. And then I have it taped into a 1/4 inch, I think it's a quarter inch socket, the smallest standard whatever they are, not metric socket that I have that goes onto my 3/8 inch driver, and then it will reach in here and grab these 4 T40 bolts. My regular T40 socket is just a little too thick with this black plastic protector around here on the oil cooler. I can't get in there at a square angle, so rather than strip them, I'm just going to rig up the system like we did on the thermostat. Oh my God, this is not as easy as it says in the directions. And there it is. It's sitting off. It's dripping out. It's kind of gross. It is not easy. Awkward. They're not very tight, these T40s. You can see the green rings. I'm not sure they gave me the right seals to go back in there. We shall find out. I'm not sure. I'm going to pull those out here in a second. Now we can access all of the oil sump pan bolts up there, because you can't get to them across the top without that oil cooler being off, sitting right there. And you can just see, yeah, see how everything's kind of seepy and wet up above there where the bolts are? And definitely on this side. But yeah, gonna pull this apart. Still gotta figure out how to pry these hoses off that have been on there forever, these coolant line hoses. Yeah, that is not fun. I bet this job's a lot easier up on a lift with the pros, and you can actually see what you're doing from underneath and get it properly lit, lighted, whatever. But yeah, we're gonna try to get this back together. What are the chances this thing's gonna be drivable? I've never taken an oil sump off before, so yeah, we'll find out. Oh, we're in the inner sanctum now, YouTube. Remember I had we had that oil splatter right there, and I don't think it's the power steering pump. It still could be, but I don't think it is. But we had that oil splatter right there from the serpentine belt area. Check this out. When I pulled the pan off, not an easy project by any means. This seal wasn't in there right. Check it out. It had folded, and this, I kind of brushed it off with a brass bristle brush right here, but this was a whole bunch of crud. You can see it right here on the end. It's been just leaking oil out this thing for a long time. So it's got these two seals. I've pulled this tube that goes from the oil filter housing and connects over, sits down in there. Pulled that off so I can get two new seals on here. They are right there ready to go in. And this is the inside. The oil cooler sitting outside, on the outside, bolts on from the outside out here. I was planning, I mean, I don't have a means to really clean all this out and get this spotless. I'm going to kind of mop up in there and get what I can, but it's kind of, you know, it's old. I don't have a parts cleaner. I thought this thing would unbolt and lift out, but it looks to be kind of riveted into place. So I'm not sure how these come apart. They're not something I can grab. I thought they were going to be bolts, these things, and that would just lift off and I'd be able to clean this whole thing out. I did play, this is the return, the square return. This is where the oil's running back from the oil trap back into the bottom of the pan. And I did use my cord, my little power cord thing from before, and just ran it through down there. It actually doesn't go straight into the pan. It goes in and then does a turn and comes back up. There's a, I don't know, it sticks up about that high on the inside, so it can't just flow straight in. It has to flow up. But yeah, the oil pickup sits down in there. These fins keep it from splashing around. But yeah, we're going to get this resealed. This could have been causing a problem for a long time. Got to clean this up with some, all the way around, got to clean this up with some, probably use acetone. But just get it cleaned up with some solvent so it's got a clean surface. And I'll show you what it looks like underneath on the inner sanctum of the engine. It's kind of scary being in that far. Alright, YouTube, gonna light that up. I just got oil dripping all over the place. Got some cardboard down here soaking it up as it's dripping. But yeah, that's the inner sanctum. That's the crankshaft. And we got main bearings and we got pistons. Yeah, that's all the good stuff. Yeah, above my pay grade. Way, way, way above my pay grade. I think there's a seal on that oil pickup right there. I probably need to get this oil pickup. That's the other seal I have that's a little bit bigger. So we'll pull this oil pickup off. Should be 2 more 10mm bolts. And I bet money right there, see my finger? Right there is another, that's that larger green seal. We'll replace that one for the oil pickup going up into the engine. So yeah, we'll get these done. Here's where the 2 seals. The bigger one goes right here. The little one goes in right there. And this is the one that was folded. And I have a feeling it was been squirting some oil out and getting on my belt and then flicking on the hood as we drive. So yeah, we got to clean up this surface with some cleaner, some solvent, get that surface cleaned up. It's just dripping some oil every once in a while. This is kind of scary seeing all this, but hopefully I can get it back together. Worst part about this is this. I'm going to show you right here. See that? This little surface? That. Right here. Where my finger's at. That is part of the engine mount on this side of the car. And it's just blocking access to get to 2 of the bolts for the oil pan. It is hard to do. I had to go to Ace Hardware, Craftsman Tools, and get a 1/4-inch drive, 10mm socket, little guy, a 1/4-inch drive swivel or knuckle, and a 1/4-inch drive 8-inch extension, and use my little 1/4-inch drive ratchet to get those 2 bolts out. And then I had to literally get in there. There's a pain in the butt. Had to get in there with a ratcheting head 10mm wrench and just slowly get it out with very little space because you can't back it all the way out or the socket starts hitting all of this stuff. It gets in the way. So those are not fun. I don't know if this engine mount is just slid over just a little bit. It's right there where my finger's at, touching it right there. I don't know if it's just sticking in a little bit and hard. Maybe it's supposed to be further out or has an option to mount a little bit further out, but it was just blocking access to 2 of these bolt heads, the 10mm bolts, and getting this off. So yeah, I'm going to try to get this back together. Cross my fingers. This is further than I've ever been inside of an engine by myself solo, so hopefully it goes back together and we can get this thing started. Alright YouTube, getting the old anaerobic sealant gasket off there is not easy. I rubbed it with acetone and a rag forever. Now we're trying the foaming action gasket remover. It says to foam that on there, let it sit for 20-25 minutes, rub it off with a rag, and it brings it off. So let's hope that works and I can get this redone. Yeah, a bigger project than I thought. I don't have a parts cleaner, but I used rags and got down in there and cleaned everything out as best as I could. And yeah, it's looking much better. No metal debris, I confirmed that. And not a lot of like grit, just old residues, like just patina, oil patina. This area over here seems to have the most like caked on debris. Don't know why, but it did. Yep, that's it. We're going to clean this up and put it back together. Alright YouTube, hours later, and that's as good as I can get it. I've used the entire can of that gasket remover, and it barely made a dent in this. I'm going to cross my fingers that I have enough mating surface that's good and fresh to seal this bad boy up. If it leaks, you'll never see this video. If it works, I'll include it in the video. So there's your little preview of if it worked or not. I did see FCP Euro sells an entire aftermarket oil pan kit. So if this doesn't work, maybe I'll just get a new one. Yeah, I don't want to do the job again though. This is a pain in the ass. But I've tried everything I can to get this residue off, and that's as good as I can get it. I've been working on it for hours. That entire can, that little can right there, that blue can, that's empty. And we've let it set. I let it set for a half hour the last time, 20 minutes, 25 minutes the first time, and that's as good as I could get it. So it's cleaned up with acetone. I'm going to put a new coat on it and see if I can slide it in. Hard part is going to be getting it in without knocking these two O-rings. They sit in a little groove on the top, on the bottom on the upper side of on the engine block. And this has got to slide. It's got to come in like this without knocking them off out of their little grooves. Yeah, that's gonna be the hard part, because this wasn't easy to get out. It had to, this side's got to go in first, and then this side pops up. So yeah, good. Wish me luck. All right, there it is. I spread it on there. It's just a little squeezy bottle, and it doesn't seal until it's anaerobic and loses contact with oxygen. So I have about, I think it said an hour before it's got to be on there. So now I'm going to take a little roller and spread that around evenly. I have a little bit more that I can add to it. Alright, I'm not sure if that's the way to do it or not, but it got a little thin over here, kind of got grippy. So I'm going to put another bead, use all of what I've got, kind of make an extra bead on there, and then we'll stick it in the engine and hope it seals. Cross your fingers. Kind of a goopy mess. Let's see if I can get it back in with those seals staying in place. Cross your fingers. Hours putting that pan back on there. After it took a long time to clean it up. Get it back on there. Last I could see the two seals that are on the inside of the oil pan that go up just behind the oil filter housing on the accessory pulley side, the passenger right side of the car. They were there last time I saw them, but getting the pan up there and getting enough bolts to hold it in place, it moves. I have no idea if those two seals are still where they're supposed to be until we start this thing up and it runs normally, which is probably why the small one was creased and bent and not sealing properly. But who knows how long it's been like that. Pan is on there. All the bolts are torqued to 13. There's two bolts that are really hard to get to. I had to get... Alright YouTube, I'd like to say it's on, but it has not been fun. Killed my battery on my phone. You can see the red anaerobic sealant, just a little edge of the extra I put on there. It kind of runs all along. I've cleaned it up. The hardest part on this, getting this pan back in, is getting it past, I don't even know if you can see it, there's a little ledge right behind that hydraulic line. Or whatever that line, that's the fuel, no that's not the fuel line. The shiny one up there is the fuel line. Whatever that is below it, it's power steering I believe. Honestly, I have no idea what the hell that thing is. Anyway, the hardest part is getting the pan over this. There's an engine mount right there, and getting it to slide up in there, and then hold it in place and line up all the holes and get a couple bolts going. Remember, there are two Geez, that's so close. In this area, there are 2 oil seals up in there, about where my fingers are at, roughly. A big one and a little one. And they sit into the engine block, and the pan comes up against them. They sit in grooves. The last chance I could see them, they were there. But as you're positioning this thing to get all these 10mm bolts into place, and get a couple of them to hold it in place, the whole pan is wiggling. So as you get them into place and start tightening this up, you have no positive check to see that they're still, those 2 seals are where they're supposed to be. So it's all sealed up, everything's in, or it's tightened and torqued, all the 10mm. There's 2 13mm over on this end. Let's see if I can find one of them. There's one right there. There's one, and there's one towards the front of the car. That's on the back side of the pan. There's one on the front. Anyway, that's all there. Then I did... Let's back up again. Woo! Tight quarters. Man, this would be so much easier with the lift. New oil cooler is in place. It is a Bear. It is not stamped Volvo, but the funny thing is the Volvo one was stamped Bear as well. So it's the same, just doesn't have the plastic edging around it. So it's just a cooler. It is torqued back together with the T40s. The new hoses are in place. They are clamped. I filled it with coolant. And I have not started it. And I filled it with oil. Have not turned it over. I'm going to let it sit until tomorrow. Let it sit overnight and let this anaerobic sealer cure. It says it's supposed to be good after an hour. Or actually it says sealed immediately, but it hits its maximum cure or maximum sealing ability at 24 hours. So I'm going to wait till overnight, and we'll crank this up in the morning, and we'll flush the coolant, check the oil level, make sure there's no leaks. I'm not going to put the supercar cover underneath here until I make sure there's no leaks. I'm worried about oil coming out of these 2 seals. This is a weird deal. This oil cooler just sits on there flush, and there's 2 washer-like oil rings, or O-rings, that sit in there, and the 40s just squish it. So it doesn't really line up, except that there's extra slop in how the O-rings mount on there. It's kind of weird. Doesn't really insert inside. There's no male-female on that attachment. It just sits in the place, and as these are lined up, it's lined up. So yeah, it's good to go. Yeah, top off the coolant tomorrow, bleed it through, and make sure the oil's good. Make sure we have no leaks down here, and we'll see if this thing runs. Hopefully it pulls out of the driveway under its own power. I'm exhausted. That's it. That wasn't a lot of fun. All right, YouTube, it is now back in the morning. It's been the anaerobic sealant's been on there for about 10 hours. Or excuse me, 12 hours. And it gets its full cure at 24 hours. Coolant is filled up. I've squeezed the hoses, pulled a bunch of it through, but now we got to heat it up with the heater on full blast. Oil is in it. I put oil in it last night. Just need to get it started, make sure it builds pressure, make sure there's no leaks underneath. Cross your fingers. This car's got to make a road trip to Albuquerque in the next 4 or 5 days. So hopefully it is good to go, or I'm making other plans. All right, YouTube, got a special treat for you. Yeah, check this out. And this is the cross-country Lagatha battle wagon. The tree is bent over, blocking my path. I got some shoveling to do. Prevy is good. It'll go anywhere. It's just got a needs an oil pump seal and a water pump. So it's got issues. Don't trust it on the road at the moment. That's not going to happen until April when I get back. But that is not a snow car. That's a front-wheel drive sport wagon. It is buried in. It's plowed in. I'm going to have to dig that baby out today, assuming that this one runs and backs itself out. So, yeah, there's some fun to be had here. We're supposed to get 2 feet, something like that. 2 feet of snow today. So, welcome to Colorado in spring. All right, YouTube, moment of truth. Let's see what happens on this dash. Hopefully, oil pressure builds up, the lights go out, and the car runs. And then we'll check underneath to see if there's any leaking while we get this bad boy to heat up. Got to crank the heat. Oil. Oil pressure's out. She's running. She's running. All right, let's go check underneath, see what we got. Let's just let this bad boy heat up to do a warm up, cool down cycle on the, I'm gonna put the heat on max over here. Get a bunch of heat going to pull coolant into the heater coil. So yeah, gotta get the thermostat to open up and get this thing up to temperature. So let's check, see what's happening. All right, YouTube, she's running. I don't know if I was filming earlier or not. I have to check my files. Yeah, it's running. I don't see any leaks. I've gone around down here with the light. Lit up everywhere along the oil pan seals. Or seal. No leaking. That little bit of liquid there was from before. That's just mostly on the bolts that were still wet. I was going so fast getting them on, I didn't have time to dry them all off. So yep, there we go. Yep, see it? Make sure you guys can see it. Yeah, there's no leaking. The bolts are a little wet because they were wet before in a bucket. And I just quickly grabbed them and put them on before I lost everything. But no leaking from the cooler. Assuming the cooler's going, it's got to be going because the thermostat just opens up to get to the radiator. So coolant's got to be flowing through here already. Yeah, we are good to go. No leaks over here. No signs of any issues. Check the fluids and get this coolant level topped off. I think we got a car. YouTube, she's running. I was just underneath there. No drips, no nothing. Got it up to temperature. It's not really climbing above, up to its normal operating temperature, sitting in here idling in the cold. It's getting closer. I was just in here, I revved it up to 5,000. Gradually kind of built it up, but it usually sits about a needle distance off a middle there. So it's not quite all the way up. There are no error messages, no issues. It's toasty warm in here, blowing lots of hot air. Yeah, I wonder, what do you guys do when you're waiting for your cars to come up to temp? Do you go do that? Yeah, I'm like 1/10 of the way to do it. This is the curse of the oversized lot on a corner. Corner lot, oversized, and it's on the main access road for the neighborhood, one of 3 access roads. So I get plowed in, and that car is gonna have to get dug out because yeah, that car should be in the garage hiding from all this. And this car should be out there battling the elements, but we'll get it fixed. It's gonna be back on the road. We're gonna turn it off, let it cool back down while I shovel the rest of the snow. All right, YouTube, I'm getting tired. It's been 3 hours and the snow is really coming down now. It's been coming down pretty mild the last 3 hours while I was shoveling all this. There's a lot of water. Look at this. That's a lot of snow. That is a lot. And I've still got to dig out this driveway because I got plowed in. And then we're gonna get Ragnar into the garage. At least the V70 is cooling down. It is totally probably at normal temperature. It sucked through a bunch of coolant, so we'll go through another heat cycle here in a little bit. But yeah, what do you guys do to cool down your cars to occupy your time? 3 hours, absolute exhaustion. Snow 90X, baby. 4 hours later, driveway is dug out. Water's moving. Ragnar is still buried, but at least I can pull it in, pull it forward. I cleared just enough to get in the car. We'll pull it forward. We'll put it in the garage, get it out of this weather. But first, that car has totally cooled down. We're gonna do another heat cycle on it. If it doesn't have any leaks, I'm gonna put the splash pan back on the bottom of it, turn it back into a super wagon. And then take it for an Italian tune-up, Dolomite tune-up with all the snow. Look at that, Jesus. That is crazy. The chain link fence on the tennis courts is pretty much solid. Yeah, we'll do a Italian tune-up on it and call it good. Be safe out there, YouTube. Have fun. YouTube, we are driving. See if I can get it all the way up full temp. It just won't do that idling in the garage. And it's also, you know, 41 degrees is what it says out here. But yeah, here we go. We are cruising. Piece of cake. I don't need that much wiper. Heading up South Boulder Road. We'll drive over into Boulder, come back on the highway. Give it the little Italian tune-up, Dolomite tune-up today with the snowflakes. And this bad boy's ready to go. I actually switched I let it warm up as far as it would in the garage and put the supercar under shield back on there, so we are good to go. There's no signs of any leaking whatsoever. I think she is ready to battle. Shield Maiden is back on the road, baby. Be safe out there, YouTube. If I can do it, you can do it. Crossing my fingers this thing makes it to Albuquerque and back. Be safe.